Hi, I'm Sandy Schreck, and yesterday we had a hands-on class here at Lembush Roses. So we made such beautiful stuff, we wanted to have the opportunity to take you on a tour of them. So our first piece here, it was made in a full brick flora cage, and it features the bamboo easel that it's on. So we've done great groupings and multiple lines throughout. So you'll see the delphinium form one strong line, and then the leucadendron do a crossing line, and then the aspidistra tying that together. And just in repetition of that, we've also added just a little bit of metallic leaves that are shaped like the aspidistra leaves to just add a little bit of shimmer and shine to that and give a little bit different texture. Our next piece is Mosaic Garden. So this piece is done in color blocking with multiple different flowers coming in. And you can see the strong red color at the base really anchors that piece. We've also included butterflies in this piece. Butterflies are the sign of rebirth, so I really feel like it makes a great Sympathy collection. Our next piece comes in, and this is actually made in a 21-inch wreath base. And what we've done is actually cut a portion of that out. So you can see it's a plastic back wreath base. And so we've just formed a crescent shape. And so this would be to be able to display an urn, and use some greening techniques down at the base that kind of covers the foam easily, doing aspidistra, kind of one tying into the next, curving over the wreath form, and then the flowers were just placed throughout. So you can see the strong repetition of color coming in with the placements of orange throughout the design to add that extra depth. And other garden flowers, just as you would walk through the garden, seeing those different placements of different materials. Our next piece uses a banding technique. So the river cane and the equisetum were bound together and just put on top of the cross. So there's a 24-inch mache back cross on the back of there. And then we extended that using the equisetum and river cane. And then we use U-glue strips to create the bands and make sure that none of the river cane and equisetum fell out. So they're not into the water, they're just sitting on a wet foam frame. And then just the floral placement just coming through the middle, featuring some of our Lembush grown lilies, and then some of the roses and a little bit of lavender lisianthus that's grown here at Lembush as well. Personalization is one of those key things in Sympathy and celebrations of life. So here we have a tripod that's actually made out of golf clubs. We've used the flora cage, the smaller flora cage in there, and zip tied that into the tripod to form a very strong stand. Use the lighter color carnation to create a grouping mass, and then use the leucadendron and the kangaroo paw to really add an interesting concept on that. We wanted to stay a little smaller on this so that we were still able to see the golf club's tripod. What really brings us all together is that strong band of the yellow ranunculus throughout. And then using the variegated aspidistra helps to pull that yellow and marry it to all the other foliage. So this next piece we showed as a demo, and this piece here is made with a number of green plants that are still in pots. We'll have a YouTube video showing you guys how to make that. But I have two orchids that are done in kokedama style. So they're in the moss balls, and then the ivy plants and the ferns are still in their pots and placed into a small casket saddle from Smithers Oasis. So I just don't want you to get pigeonholed into only thinking those casket saddles are for funeral work. And so this, with the great cage on top, poking the bamboo skewers into them through the plants, gives a great stable base. So our next piece here is made on a sculpting sheet. So we used a piece of paper to trace out a pattern, and then cut the butterfly shape out of its one sculpting sheet that we used on this piece. And so the designers created a pattern using their fingers, just kind of drawing on the sculpting sheet foam, and then started their flower placement. So I thought the use of the drumstick alien was really fabulous for the antennas, and then also the use of the lily grass that kind of gives a little bit of motion to an otherwise flat presentation. So I thought that was really great. I love this next piece. So this is also on a 24-inch cross, but what we've done is taken a wooden cross that's more of a country chic and can be a keepsake, and we've attached that right on top of the foam cross and just banded that on using some bind wire. And then the floral materials are added in groupings with the liatris extending the stems or extending the length, and then just a crossing pattern coming in with some of the filler flowers and roses, done all in a monochromatic area using all shades of purple. So here's our complementary piece to that, using one of our European inspired wreaths. And so this is a twig wreath with a 12-inch plastic back wreath base that's tied onto that, as well with the bind wire also. So really had a smaller foam surface to work in. We wanted to keep this interesting, but kind of staying with that little bit more international flair. What we've done is done a technique and just created a little bit of a base that's gonna hook right into get control of those calla lilies to be able to form those great lines and show those calla lily stems. And those callas are grown here at Lembush as well. So that's kind of our European inspired wreath. And then we come into casket saddle here, casket spray, and just fabulous. Just the stunning yellow colors really coming in. But updating our designs, we're really looking at doing things in groupings. So rather than really dotty presentations, so you'll see the roses form a small group coming out one side. They've done some tailoring on some of the sunflowers to give a little bit more interesting. We've got some of the lilies up here, and then added a little bit of dynamic lines, adding some of the kiwi vine in there, and then some groupings of the solid aster. So thought that was a great presentation, really good texture, and a great way to celebrate somebody's life. So in talking about groupings, this is another one project that we talked about, and this is using more of a rectangle container and really talking about selling negative space. So we use some of the Mendolino to add extra value to this piece and give it a larger presence. And also the negative space between the two glad bunches, and just coming down into focals, but really kind of staying the same color families there. So this piece here is done on a riser. So the risers that have the styrofoam base, and here we've used a box in the center, but in the center of that we have the plastic aspidistra leaf that's covering that styrofoam base, and just use multiple shades of roses. We have the Art Deco rose and the pink Monda rose that create extra interest, along with the Lisianthus and Ranunculus and the green Kermit mini gerbs. So really comes in, great framing technique with the addition of the Bells of Ireland, just adding that extra height and just bringing more accent right to it. So this was another piece that was another example of just a little bit different design style. So this design is actually, the flower placement is done in a circular pattern with the center staying empty. And so you look down in, and you can't really see in there, I guess, but the middle of it, there's no flowers right in through the middle. So all of the flower placements are done more in a column pattern. And so just a little bit different presentation, but a way to be able to use flowers in a different manner. So this was another one of the demos, and here we're just using those same materials and just showing a different presentation. So strong line of glads through the middle, groupings of roses to one side, the lily and the aster in groupings on the other side, and then a line of carnations coming in through. And sometimes sympathy work doesn't need to be big. And so here we're just using some basic everyday flowers, but using, you know, strong placements and giving each one its own space to be able to shine. So using a couple of the leucadendron, one of the kangaroo paw, one lily, and two of the calla lilies. So, and just bringing it together, adding some lily grass to just add some of that negative space. And then lastly, we have our wreath here that we showed in class that I made. And this right here also just starts on the regular heart shape. But you can see what we've done, really, the message was to color outside the lines. So rather than just stay within the form, be able to think outside the lines, and we had a really great foliage structure that we just added some flower adornment to. So we started, it just was a stunning piece just before we even put any flowers in. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed our little presentation here, and I just wanted to thank all of the students that came in. They just did a fabulous job, and we really appreciate having the opportunity to keep our customers successful.